The James Show Podcast.
We have some mass shootings to talk about again. These are a little smattered all over the country, and there's not one big one that has captivated all of our attention. And really, as sort of a demonstration of how the media can select the narrative just by picking some stories to highlight and avoiding others, this is a perfect day to go through that sort of, I mean, it's not even a theory. It's not a hypothesis or a theory. We know this. This is the number one way people lie to you. This is the number one way media outlets lie to you, is the stories they choose to omit. So the bigger headlines, the ones that you're definitely going to hear about on the shows that was before me and after me, a couple of those, the shooting that happened in Michigan. There's an LDS church in Michigan. The non-LDS people more commonly refer to them as Mormons. And it's an ugly one. Some guy drove his truck into their church, got out, started shooting, took out a couple people, threw gasoline everywhere, set fire, and then he died in a shootout with the cops while the church burned to the ground, and supposedly 2 other people perished in the resulting fire, and we're not even sure if that's going to be the end of it. So huge, terrible tragedy. And the normal factors are at work here. People in Team Blue are trying to blame Team Red. People on Team Red are trying to blame Team Blue. But this just happened. So whatever the details I pass along today, some of them will be adjusted in the days to come. But before we dive too much in the details here, there's a lot of other shootings that happened over the weekend, some of which are getting attention, some aren't. There was a strange story of I'm not saying this to be funny. It's a boat-by shooting. You know how there's drive-by shootings? We've even seen like motorcycle shootings or someone on a bicycle or a moped do a shooting. I think this is the first time in my life I've heard of a boat-by shooting. Some guy went past a restaurant with a dock, and it's right on the lake there, the river. And I don't know. It seemed like there was some little planning involved too. I don't know why a guy would want to go shoot up a bunch of diners who were on a pier having dinner, but it happened. South Carolina, some tiny town I'd never heard of over by Cape Fear, not the movie, but the region from which the movie was set. But that's a strange one. A couple of people dead, a lot more injured. We'll get into more details on that one. But some other mass shootings that aren't getting anywhere near the same amount of national media attention. There was one that happened in Texas. There was a deadly shooting at an Eagle Pass casino here in Texas. And you're like, wait, we can't have casinos in Texas. Well, we can have like 5 of them. And so this is on some land. This is, of course, a Native American endeavor here from the Kickapoo tribe. And in this one, we had 2 dead, 5 wounded. Now, why isn't this getting nearly as much attention? It's similar in horror and scope to the other 2. We'll get into details later, but one of the dead is a retired Customs and Border Patrol agent. We are still kind of waiting on a motive here. I don't expect a whole lot of people to do some follow-up, but I will try and follow this for you and circle back around to this. Another shooting. There's one that happened in Denton this weekend. It wasn't a mass shooting, but it's one that's not going to get nearly the same amount of attention. It was a couple of people got into an argument. It sounds like over a parking space. They say right-of-way dispute. There ended up being a shooting there. In fact, this just happened at the QT in Denton over the weekend. WFAA had the report.
New tonight, Denton police say 2 people are facing murder charges after an argument in a gas station parking lot led to a deadly shooting. It happened at the Quick Trip on West Eagle Drive around 1 o'clock this morning. Officers say Alfred Jackson Jr. and Olivia Guster got into a fight with 2 people over the right-of-way in the QT parking lot. Investigators say Jackson hit one person with a shovel and eventually shot and killed a man. Police say the victims did not know those suspects.
So 2 strangers get into an argument over something as trifling as whatever right-of-way at a QT gas station at 1 in the morning in Denton means. Certainly doesn't rise to the level of taking someone's life, but here we are. So that's another strange shooting. Why doesn't that get nearly the attention? Why doesn't that? Does that make Team Red look bad, or does that make Team Blue look bad? Does that make guns look scary? So why don't it kind of does? So why don't they report on that one as much? There's another report here. This is from local media. They say overnight, a 16-year-old was shot in Oak Cliff, in central Oak Cliff. Well, this report was put on the website, and the timestamp was from this morning, both published and updated this morning. So, yeah, overnight, a 16-year-old was shot and killed. Boy, we were sure to have a problem with gun violence here. No, actually, this shooting happened 9 days ago on September 20th. So the headline's kind of misleading. But you go read the story, and it was an accidental shooting. Some guy was playing with a gun. A 20-year-old was playing with the gun. He has quite an ethnic-sounding name. I don't know if that plays into the scope of coverage here. But it sounds like he accidentally shot a 16-year-old. He died, and so the 20-year-old's going to get charged with manslaughter here. But it was 9 days ago. It's so strange, the picking and choosing. Are the lives that were lost in Eagle Pass versus South Carolina versus the Michigan LDS church versus the accidental 16-year-old that got shot and killed? I mean, is one more valuable than the other? Does one deserve more attention than the other? Look, these are kind of rhetorical questions, but if you want to jump in on the conversation, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. But that last one, I guess it's newsworthy. Is it newsworthy if a 16-year-old's accidentally shot in a giant metropolitan area of 8 million people? You know, there's tons of other crimes that are probably more concerning to your audience. This would be something that counts as news and bug tussle because we just don't have people dying on a regular basis. You know, anything, a bad car wreck is news and bug tussle. But ask yourself this question. You get reports every time a child is accidentally killed with a gun. Even if they don't find out until 9 days later, they will still go run and publish it as if it's news. Is that new information or is that over a week old? They tell you it was overnight. No, it wasn't. Have you ever gotten a report about a young lady dying from a botched abortion? So the answer to that is no, you haven't. How did I know that? Gee, I'm just a mind reader. No, they don't. They've never reported on it. In my entire life, I've never seen one of those reports. Does it happen? Sure. Sure, it doesn't happen every day. Definitely happens every year. Some year it's just 12. Some years it's 29 or so. I've looked up the numbers. You've never heard a report on that in your entire life, even though it happened. So why is the life lost from an accidental gun discharge reported on, but the life lost from a mistake made during an abortion never gets reported? Because it's not news. You're listening to political activism masquerading as news. Isn't that immoral and ugly? And the details on this are pretty scary here. You have a guy, and he's dead. The suspect was killed at the scene. But here's a little bit of what we know about him. His name's Thomas Jacob Sanford, 40 years old, of Burton, Michigan. Sunday morning during their Sunday service, while you were at your church, this guy decided he was going to drive his truck into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township. And when I say drive his truck, I don't mean he went into the porta show. I don't mean he went into the garage. He barreled through a sidewall, got out with what looked to be a rifle, and killed a couple people from gunfire. Apparently splashed gas everywhere, started a big fire, ran out, got into a fight with the cops, lost the fight with the cops, the aristocrats. So FBI is leading the case. There's a whole bunch of feds in on it. They say they're investigating this as a targeted act of violence. Targeted act of violence. This is different than some guy who's psychotic and he's just shooting whoever's next to him. This is different than a guy whose wife's cheating on him with some dude, and so he tried to just kill that one guy. I mean, obviously, that's, not what was happening here. But I think that is a sort of politically correct way of meaning, this was quite possibly an anti-Christian, maybe specifically anti-Mormon attack. I don't know why there would be an anti-Mormon attack. There's never been one. Nobody has beef with Mormons. Who's got a problem with Mormons? Who do Mormons agitate? Nobody? I mean, they're like the nicest people in America. It's like them and the Amish. You can't even get them to fight. And I say this because where I grew up in Bug Tussle, there were a lot of LDS kids at my school. And you know what? They were good kids. They weren't poor. They weren't divorced. They weren't getting in fights. They had a good relationship with their dad. It was the craziest thing. So is this just going to get rolled up in the larger trend of anti-Christian violence? I don't want to jump the gun and say, yes, that's what it looks like so far. But that's the closest. If I had to pick a square, if I had to pick a card, any card, so far that's the one I'm leaning most toward. Again, it's real early for me to say that with any sort of certainty, but certainly looks like it this far. I've been wrong before, but I don't think I'm going to be wrong this time. Now, we've had 24 hours since this happened. The FBI says they've made over 100 interviews, and they're still working on determining a motive for attack as of a press conference that they had this morning. The special agent from the FBI Detroit office, Reuben Coleman, spoke to the media and gave that statement. So they're not making it official yet. But yesterday, if you were on your phone perusing Twitter, man, this game, this ideological bingo game that we now play whenever there's an event like this, it was in full effect. And I used to be under the heading of, hey, let's not really jump on this kind of thing. Let's wait 24, 48 hours, and then we'll start having a discussion about motive and whose fault is this and whatever. But I think I'm off that. If they're going to play the game, then damn it, we got to play it back, because I think it's more important that we don't let a false narrative get established than 48 hours try and change everyone's mind, because 48 hours from now, the news isn't going to touch it again if it doesn't fit their narrative. So as ugly as it is, as improper as it is, it's definitely impolite. There's definitely the sort of a lack of humanity in the people that insist on going down this road hardcore that are sort of forcing your hand here. But yeah, let's play that game. So I am going to go ahead and say tentatively, this was another act of anti-Christian violence. This is going to be a guy that I know lefties are going to tell you, NPR is probably going to tell you, it's another example of right-wing violence. They'll find some way. But some of these things seem to be self-evident. How could it be a MAGA guy that shot Charlie Kirk? Wouldn't being someone who hates Charlie Kirk so much you want to murder him sort of absolve you from being in the MAGA label? Right? I mean, like, how conservative can you be if Charlie Kirk throws you into a murderous rage? So not only is it not true, it's something that can't be true. It's like when they were saying at Gitmo that the American interrogators were torturing the poor Muslim inmates at Gitmo, the poor Taliban and Al-Qaeda inmates, by flushing a Quran down the toilet. Can you flush a book down the toilet? Go get a book, put it in the toilet, hit flush. Does it go down? No. So not only was it an untrue story, it's an impossible story. So yeah, MAGA people, is that the anti-Christian subgenre within our culture? Quite doubtful. Another thing we need to look at in all these attacks, and I know it feels ugly because it's only been 30 hours or so since this happened, but we have to start playing this game. For the people that want to talk about gun control, let's ask, did this guy get his gun from a gun show loophole? Is there any background checks that would have stopped him? Did he get this gun legally or illegally? What gun control measures that you've proposed or that have been proposed would have stopped this? Is this a guy that has a criminal record? So that adult conversation needs to be had. And look, we're going to spend probably more time on this one because this sort of fits in the larger continuing narrative of anti-Christian violence. And I would guess this guy either has a personal beef with someone in the church and just wanted to raise all hell on his way out, or this was an anti-Christian attack. Another one of those. 800-288-9227. This is Bill in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. Hey, Bill.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
You guys you're what causes everything. You won't shut up. You keep putting it all on the news. You hear a little bit of piece of news, and everybody on the damn radio starts hollering this, blah. Just shut up. Don't, let the news go. Everybody, what do you hear? What kind of news you hear? It's all bad. If y'all would just shut up and let's do nothing, everything be all right.
Yeah, see, that would count if you were just talking to me here, Bill. But if I shut up, everyone else is going to run their mouth, and then our side doesn't get heard.
That's what I say, everybody.
I can't control them. I can't control them. And if they're going to run their mouth, and they're going to go set the table for all the low information voters on misinformation, and then we got to somehow try and overcome that in the subsequent days when it's not news anymore, that's one of the reasons we're losing this battle. That's one of the reasons they keep shooting at us, is because so much misinformation is out there. And as ugly and distasteful as it feels, Bill, I think we've got to start fighting that, even though it doesn't feel right to do it this soon.
Well, a lot of times you'll announce something and don't even know whether you hear somebody else do it, and it's just some little shooting, and everybody in the whole world knows about it. Just make it specifically one location.
Right, but look, the lesson here is the stories that they don't report on. Have y'all ever heard of Lawrence Herr? If the name Lawrence Herr doesn't ring a bell, don't feel bad. Let me give you a quick rundown here. There was the shooting at the LDS church in Michigan yesterday. There was a boat buy shooting in South Carolina. Not trying to make a light of it. I've just never heard of that before. There was a deadly shooting in Eagle Pass here in Texas that left 2 people dead, 5 wounded over the weekend. And then last week there was a kids' baseball team that was shot up. Waller County, it's far northwest of Houston. We found out who did that, and when they originally reported, they were like, well, we got 3 suspects in custody, and they didn't name them, and now they come back and they actually named the guys, and so
3 men are under arrest after a shooting at a Katy baseball tournament that left a youth coach wounded.
The shooting happened at Rack Katy over the weekend during a tournament. The Waller County Sheriff's Office said Mahmoud Rababa, Ahmad Mawed, and Mustafa Matalga fired guns from a nearby pasture in the direction of the game. A witness from the scene said one of the coaches took a bullet to the shoulder, then immediately went to the ground to cover all nearby kids to keep them safe. He is expected to be okay.
Gee, you don't think that should be a bigger story? Some kids are trying to practice baseball, Little League baseball, while they're praying the coach gets shot. One report said arm. I saw another report that said shoulder, whatever. But he took a bullet for the kiddos. He had to get helicoptered out of there, and they tried to cover up the suspects for a few days, and then they finally admitted it over the weekend. Okay, it's 3 Muslim immigrants with Arab-sounding names, and actually, I saw Dallas Express, I saw currentrevolt.com, I saw Texas Scorecard. 3 of the sites that I tell you need to go see on a regular basis actually dig in past where some of the other media platforms were willing to go and say, yeah, actually, they're immigrants here, and 2 of them were legalized under the Biden administration for light and transient status. It's like, oh, well, this is like a K4 visa. It's just something you've never heard of. And so there you go. There's the reporting on that. There was a 16-year-old that was killed 9 days ago in an accidental shooting in Oak Cliff. That somehow makes the news. There were also 2 arrested here in North Texas after a road rage shooting left a man dead in Denton at a QT. So there's a lot of shootings that are going on, and some get more attention than others. Have you ever heard of Lawrence Herr? I find this to be a especially important story because you are told that all these media outlets and all these politicians and all these celebrities and musicians and activists care so much about racism. And they care so much about people who are just so enraged with hatred for people based on the color of the skin that they would literally be going out to murder them. And they claim that this is what they're against. Hell, they put it in the end zone of the football games that we had to watch this weekend. It takes all of us in racism, all that dumb stuff, right? Well, then you actually have one of these super rare instances happen 2 years ago, and it gets ignored. We go back to 2023. This is in the New Orleans area, a shooting that happened there.
Referred to as Salt of the Earth and affectionately nicknamed Peanut. That's how a Metairie maintenance worker who was shot and killed on Monday is being remembered. Today, Kenner police revealed there was no motive behind the murder of 66-year-old Lawrence Herr.
All right, so then a couple days later, after the story dies down and no one's going to report on it anymore, the police have a press conference and say that there is a motive.
Through some of the confession of Taj Matthews, who admitted to taking part in a homicide, that they did want to commit a murder that day, and specifically they've ruled out Hispanics, and they said it was going to be a white person.
Oh, really? Tell me more, Chief Conley.
Later in the confession, they did indicate that they were specifically not only looking to kill somebody, but they wanted it to be a white person. So that would set up the charge of a hate crime.
Yeah, for all you people who care about racial hate crimes. You have a guy who was murdered specifically for being white. Not only did it happen, they confessed and admitted it. And you get crickets. Meanwhile, Derek Chauvin is arresting a dude who's overdosing on fentanyl and meth at the same time after passing a counterfeit $20 bill with a rap sheet longer than Sean's left arm over there. And y'all go ahead and you can infer race into that. The people who see racism in a Sydney Sweeney ad and are horrified. Serena Williams can see racism in a branch from a cotton bush and see racism, but you ignore this? BS. This is Daryl in Dallas. You're on WBAP.
Oh, hey, thank you for taking my call. I really appreciate it. First of all, I'm an evangelical Christian. I'm 70 years old. The only about the LDS shooting yesterday, the only thing I would classify is, to be really strictly honest, I wouldn't classify the LDS church as a Christian church. That doesn't make any difference. I do think that the best way to coin it is people of faith. In other words, it's if like the synagogues that have been shot and other things, all of it's bad. As far as we don't,
Well, it's a branch of Christianity that you don't recognize, but it's still a branch of Christianity. You disagree with their dogma, but nevertheless, they're Christian. Maybe they're Christians who are following a dogma that doesn't fly with you, but they believe in the Bible plus an extra book, and they believe in Jesus, and they believe in everything that Christians believe in, plus this extra stuff.
They believe that all members are equal to Jesus, and that they're all going to be, all the men are going to be gods, and that the women,
they're going to get their own planet and all this stuff, right? But that doesn't mean this wasn't anti-Christian violence. They just killed the Christians that wear weird underwear.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And like I said, the only thing I would say is and I know everybody looks for a motive, and a lot of times it's just whatever. But you don't know. And I'm not pointing at LDS, but the young man that shot Charlie Kirk was raised Mormon. Now, that doesn't mean he was a practicing Mormon now, but his family are very devout Mormons. So I don't know if there's any connection there, and I don't even know if we should read anything into it. The one thing that I would say in all the shootings that you just mentioned, just since you came back a few minutes ago in Texas, it's amazing how much substance is involved. The one that was at the QT and the Denton, it's like, the guy's intoxicated, and he's upset because somebody bumped his whatever, it's just a mishap over a gas pump, and somebody shoots and kills someone. I mean, that horrible part, and we've got to get back to people of reasonable faith, and good people, and make good decisions. So I just want to tell you, I appreciate your show, and thank you for taking my call.
The James Show Podcast.